Hello everybody, I'm PhenomSage, and welcome back to another Place Further Than the Universe episode review. Today we are going to be talking about episode 7, The Ship That Sees the Universe. Now, I'll be honest, for the first half or so of this episode, I was getting legitimately worried about reviewing this episode because while it was entertaining, I was just struggling to find anything to grasp onto and talk about for this review. And surprisingly, I haven't run into that issue at all during the run of this series, and I was very scared about that happening this episode. Thankfully, by the time the second half hit, it hit hard, and I realized that I was worried for nothing, and there's still a bunch to talk about in this episode. And let's just get this out of the way right now. I teared up twice during the second half. Once while listening to Gin talk about everyone's determination, we see the flashback, we see all of that. And then the second time during this group speech at the end of the episode, and you get that Shirase speech, it empowers everybody, and I was just like, oh my god, dude, stop, I'm getting emotional. And for one, I would say half of that is due to the incredible OST. Like, the OST has been fantastic this entire series. It's just so well placed, so well utilized, and in this episode, it just hit me that much harder because of the context and because of what these characters are going through right now. It just elevates those feelings to an even higher degree, and I wasn't expecting to be tearing up in this episode, but I was. And that's because on top of the OST, the other part of that is just because over the course of this story, they have just done such a good job of building these characters. They've built them up, they've paced them well in terms of their development, seeing more aspects to their characters and getting to know them more and more. So by the time that we've reached this point, we're over halfway into the series, I just care about their situations and what they're going through emotionally. I want to see them accomplish their goals, and this is why I don't think that they should have rushed to Antarctica in the first place. I've seen some people say that it's been taking a little while to get to Antarctica. Some people expected that to be at least by the halfway point of the series, and we're still not there. I'm happy that we're not there yet, and this is precisely the reason. The pace has just been beautiful, and as I've said in previous reviews, the reason that we're not in Antarctica yet is because it goes directly against the themes that this series is exploring. This is about the journey. What's even more impressive about this episode, though, isn't the fact that I cried because Shirase was giving this speech to the crew. People who were doubtful and starting to feel that hesitation about going on this trip because they don't know if they can even make it. It's the fact that I was tearing up because of these characters I don't even know, that were either just introduced or have had very little part in the actual series up to this point. It is just a testament to excellent writing that I immediately sympathize with this group, this expedition, what they went through previously and where they are now. And that's why I want to say that I'm just so happy with this episode. I would say it's one of the best episodes in the series purely for that second half because of the focus on this expedition group and seeing more into their backstory and what led us to this point in the first place. It gave them a lot more character, it made me sympathize with their struggles, and now they are no longer side characters to me, they are a part of this journey with the girls. And of course, their story and these characters are what I'm going to be focusing on for the large majority of this review, because it is what stood out to me the most in this episode. There's just such a charm to seeing this adult group in a similar situation to the girls back in their past, embarking on their first expedition and feeling that same excitement that we've seen from Shirase, Yuzuki, Mari, and Hinata. And that is the major thing that was making me emotional while watching this episode, was seeing the origin, seeing the starting point of what has led us to this moment. This is the reason that all of us are standing here on this boat right now, is because of some offhanded comment that Shirase's mother made while they were in school. And I do have to talk about that for a second because I love it. I love that Takako's driving force to go to Antarctica was nothing major, it was nothing huge. In a similar vein, it is what we saw with Mari, just a very simple and focused desire. It was, and I quote, "I love leaving my footprints in fresh snow." That's all it takes. That's all it took for Takako to convince Gin to go on this adventure with her. And there's just something so beautiful about such a simple desire evolving into this dream and passion, and just expanding to the degree where it's no longer just a simple desire, it's their entire life. I love situations like that. I love writing like that. So it's no wonder that I loved that backstory and that origin story so much. And of course, they didn't just go to Antarctica for no reason the first time. They did have a main purpose as a group. And from what I gather, the main purpose or the motivation to go on this expedition was to establish an astronomical observatory at this Shirase station. Now, we don't get much information or motivation as to why they want to establish this. We do get a brief line that says, we as civilians, this is the dream, being able to do this research despite not having as big of a station or a group or resources as those other guys, but we don't really know exactly why an astronomical observatory. It is alluded to that Shirase's mother does love the stars, and she loves space and the universe, so I assume that is why. But at the same time, it might just have been an added requirement to set up that observatory just so they would be allowed to go to Antarctica in the first place. And that is connected to our present time motivation, our present time goal to go to Antarctica. And that is because Shirase Station is unmanned at this time since their team had pulled out before, and their quote-unquote primary goal is to go back and get it up and running. Now, of course, we as viewers know that this probably is just a front. This isn't why they want to go to Antarctica. I'm sure they want to get the station up and running again, but it feels like a cover for their true objective or their true goal. And what is that true goal? Well, they didn't necessarily reveal that in this episode, and of course they're foreshadowing something bigger to come later on, but of course I'm here to give my speculation on all of that. And it doesn't take much conjecture to say that it absolutely has something to do with Shirase's mother, and they try to cover this up a little bit during the episode. We hear Kanai and Gin giving some vague reasoning that's alike to wanting to look upon the stars that they saw back on their first expedition with Takako, with the rest of the group that was there with them a couple years ago. It's a noble cause, it's a beautiful cause, but on top of all that, I can't shake the feeling that there's more to all of this. There's another reason for wanting to go that directly has to do with Shirase's mother. And as I said, throughout the episode, and I would go so far as to say throughout the entire series, they have been intentionally vague about what is going on with Takako, Shirase's mother. We get the most information that we've gotten during the episode in this backstory, where we see Kanai and Gin stuck in this camper, this snowmobile. Takako is not in there, and Gin is screaming at the door during a blizzard. So of course it's assumed that Takako just got stuck out in the blizzard. They never found her body and assumed her as dead. And this has been speculated on since the beginning of the series about what is going on with Shirase's mother. Is she still alive? Is she dead? What is going to happen with that? Now, I can't say for sure either way, but what I can say 100% for sure is that when they get to Antarctica, they will either find a body or they will find her alive. I don't think you can wrap up this series without one or the other happening. Either way, it will create a very emotional climax, not only for Shirase, but now that we have this backstory, we realize how much the other members of the expedition truly cared about her as well. I'm going to be crying like a baby whenever one or the other happens, and it will be such a powerful moment that, like I said, I just can't see them not approaching one story beat or the other. And courtesy of Reddit, here is a screenshot and a theory that I picked up out of the forums. In this image, you see a giant bed of flowers there, which could possibly be foreshadowing the fact that they either want to find the body and give it a proper send-off, or at the very least want to perform some kind of ceremony when they get there. Now, of course, these flowers could literally be nothing. They could just be some prop in the background to make this room look nicer, but I could put some stock into this theory just because I don't really see the point of bringing a bed of flowers onto a ship that will be rocking in the waves unless you actually had an important role for them. So the question at that point is whether or not they're going to try and retrieve Takako's body, or if they're just performing a ceremony. I could see that going either way as well, but like I said, if Takako is dead, There is no way we are not retrieving her body. That is just not something that I can see happening. It's too important to all of our characters at this point that we get some kind of closure to Shirase's mother. As for this original group, I would not mind at all in the future episodes if we got more of a look into this backstory between Takako and the rest of this group. I feel like we focused a lot on Gin and Kanai, but I would love to get some more focus on the other characters that we haven't gotten a lot of focus on, which would flesh them out more and give us more reason to connect with Takako. Also, I have to say that this trip to Australia was a lot shorter and less pronounced than I thought it would be. Like, out of all of the locations that we were going to visit on the road to Antarctica, I did not expect Singapore to get its own dedicated episode, but Australia to just basically be there as a stopping point for food, and for the majority of it to be taking place on the boat. I'm not complaining, but it's just interesting the way that they approached that structure there, and now we're basically off from Australia on our way to Antarctica now. I imagine we'll have one more episode of sailing, just chilling out on the boat. The quote-unquote preview at the end of the episode did have a shot of just some very rough waves. I imagine that it will be an ordeal getting to Antarctica through these waves, and our characters are gonna have to experience this kind of rough weather for the first time. So that should be an interesting scenario, but after we're through there, I think we'll have finally made it to Antarctica by the end of next episode. This is a great pace. As I said, I love the amount of time that we've taken to get to this point, spending the final few episodes in Antarctica centered around this overarching goal of finding Takako's body, setting up the station, and of course having the girls' goals and motivations fulfilled is a very fitting way to close out this series. And it's not like the past 7 episodes have been boring or uninteresting, so I don't know why you would complain about not getting to Antarctica yet. This is clearly a very character-driven series, and it's been handled excellently so far. But that's been all from me for this Place Further Than the Universe episode review. Thank you all so much for watching, as always. Thank you for the likes, comments, support. I give the same spiel every single episode, and that is just because you guys are the best. I love sharing my passion for this series with you guys. Remember that the main girls are not legal, and of course, as usual, have a great day.